The Galactic Council had seen many strange things in its 10,000 years of existence. They had witnessed the rise and fall of empires that spanned entire star clusters. They had documented species that could bend light with their minds and others that lived for millions of years, but nothing had prepared them for humanity. Ambassador Velkith of the Zentari Collective stood before the massive viewing screen, her 4 arms crossed in what her species considered deep thought. Behind her, representatives from 12 different civilizations watched the footage playing on repeat. "This cannot be real," said High Arbiter Morath, his crystalline body flickering with disbelief. "The data must be corrupted." "I have verified it 17 times, Velkith replied. "The footage is authentic. The humans call them champions." On the screen, a small human female stood before an army of Krix warriors. The Krix were known throughout the galaxy as the most feared soldiers in existence. Each one stood over 3 meters tall, covered in natural armor that could stop plasma fire. Their claws could tear through starship hulls. A single Krix could destroy an entire battalion of most species soldiers. There were 10,000 of them on the screen. The human woman was dressed in simple clothing. She held no weapon. She was perhaps 1.5 meters tall and looked like she weighed less than a typical Krix's arm. "She is a teacher," Velkith explained. "She teaches young humans in a place called a school. She believes deeply that all children deserve protection and education." "Beliefs do not stop armies," Morath said. "Watch," Velkith replied. The Krix army charged. The ground shook from their massive feet. Their war cries filled the air with a sound that had made entire civilizations surrender without fighting. The teacher did not move. She simply raised one hand. And the entire army stopped, not because they chose to stop, but because something stopped them. An invisible force held 10,000 Krix warriors in place, frozen like statues. "The humans call it conviction," Velkith said. "When a human believes in something strongly enough, truly believes in it with their entire being, they can manifest that belief as physical power." "That is not possible," said another council member, a being made entirely of gas who spoke through vibrations. "Belief is abstract. It cannot affect physical matter." "For every other species we have encountered, that is correct," Velkith agreed. "But humans are different. Their brains work in ways we do not fully understand. Their emotions are connected to something deeper, something that can reach into the fabric of reality itself." The footage continued. The teacher spoke to the Krix army. Though her words were in human language, the translation appeared at the bottom of the screen. "You will not hurt these children," she said. Her voice was calm but carried weight beyond sound. "I have spent my life protecting young minds. I have helped hundreds of students grow and learn. I have stayed late to help struggling children. I have spent my own money to buy them supplies. I have cried with them when they were sad and celebrated with them when they succeeded. This is not just what I do. This is who I am, and you will not take that from me or from them." The invisible force began to push the Krix army backward. 10,000 elite warriors were moved like leaves in wind by a single small woman who had never held a weapon in her life. "The Krix fled," Velkith said, turning off the footage. "Their fleet left human space and has not returned. They reported that they encountered a force they could not understand or defeat." The council sat in stunned silence. "How many of these champions do the humans have?" Morath finally asked. "That is the truly remarkable thing," Velkith said. "Any human can become a champion. It is not a genetic trait or special training. It simply requires genuine, deep belief in something." She activated another set of files. Images and reports filled the screens around the chamber. This human believed in justice. He worked as what humans call a lawyer, fighting to free innocent people who were wrongly imprisoned. When an alien warlord tried to destroy a human colony, this lawyer stood against him. His conviction was so strong that he could see truth and lies as visible colors around people. He could make others speak only truth in his presence. The warlord's own soldiers turned against him when they heard their leader confess to his crimes. Another image appeared. This human believed in healing. She was a doctor who had dedicated her life to saving others. When a plague struck a human world, she walked among the sick and dying. Her touch could cure any disease. She saved 3 million lives in a single month. More images, more stories. This human believed in protecting nature. He could communicate with any living thing and command the forces of weather itself. This one believed in art and beauty. She could create illusions so real that they became permanent, turning wastelands into gardens with the power of her creativity. This one believed in family and love. He could create shields that nothing could break, protecting those he cared about from any harm. "Surely there must be limits," said a council member whose species resembled large insects. "Surely not all humans can do this." "Most humans never develop these abilities," Velkith admitted. "It requires a level of conviction that is rare even among their species. The belief must be complete. It must be the core of who they are. There can be no doubt, no hesitation. But the potential exists in all of them. And when that potential is realized, there appears to be no upper limit to what they can achieve." "This changes everything," Moreth said, his crystalline form now pulsing with alarm. "If humanity can create unlimited numbers of beings with godlike powers simply through belief, they would be unstoppable," the insectoid agreed. "We must take action. We must eliminate them before they grow too powerful." "That has already been tried," Velkith said quietly. 7 species have attempted to destroy humanity since they first left their home world. All 7 species no longer exist. The silence that followed was heavy with fear. "Then what do you propose we do?" Moreth asked. Velkith turned to face the council fully. "I propose we try something that no species has ever done with humans. I propose we talk to them. I propose we try to understand them. And most importantly, I propose we become their friends." "Friends?" The word was spoken with confusion by several members. "Yes, because humans do not only create champions to destroy enemies. They create champions to help those they care about. And I would much rather be someone humanity cares about than someone they believe they must stop." The council had much to discuss. 6 months later, a small delegation of humans arrived at the Galactic Council headquarters. There were 5 of them, chosen specifically for this first official meeting between humanity and the wider galaxy. Velkith met them at the landing platform. She had studied human customs extensively and attempted what they called a smile, pulling back her facial plates to expose her inner mouth in what she hoped was a friendly way. The lead human, a tall male with gray hair and kind eyes, smiled back. He did not seem frightened by her appearance, which surprised her. Most species found the Zentari unsettling. "Ambassador Velkith," he said, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture. "I am Thomas Reed, representative of the Earth Federation. Thank you for inviting us." She carefully took his hand and moved it up and down as she had practiced. "Thank you for coming, Representative Reed. The Council is eager to learn more about your people." "And we about yours," he replied, "though I suspect you have been learning about us for quite some time already." Velkith's facial plates shifted in the Zentari equivalent of embarrassment. "We have observed your species with great interest, yes." Thomas Reed laughed. It was a warm sound, not threatening. "Do not worry, Ambassador. We expected as much. A new species that can apparently break the laws of physics would naturally attract attention." They walked together through the massive corridors of the council headquarters. Thomas Reed looked around with obvious wonder, but he also watched the various alien species they passed with something else in his eyes. Velkith realized it was curiosity mixed with genuine interest. "Is it true," she asked as they walked, "what our scientists theorize, that your champions draw power from belief itself?" "That is the simplest way to explain it," Thomas replied. "Though our scientists are still trying to understand the exact mechanism, What we do know is that it is connected to what we call conviction, a deeply held belief that becomes the foundation of who a person is. And anyone can develop this ability. In theory, yes. In practice, it is rare. True conviction is not easy. People often think they believe in something, but when tested, they discover doubts they never knew they had. A champion has no such doubts. Their belief is complete and unshakable. They entered a large waiting chamber where the other human delegates were being greeted by various council representatives. Velkith noticed that one of the humans, a young woman with dark skin and bright eyes, was currently healing a Zentari worker who had injured himself moving equipment. "She is a champion?" Velkith asked. "Dr. Sarah Chen," Thomas confirmed. "She believes in healing with every fiber of her being. She started as a simple nurse and discovered her abilities when a building collapsed, and she refused to let her patients die." Refused. That is perhaps the key word. Champions do not accept limitations that conflict with their beliefs. Dr. Chen refused to accept that her patients would die, and reality somehow bent to her refusal. Velkith watched as the worker's injuries faded under Dr. Chen's gentle touch. The Zentari looked at the human with something approaching worship in his many eyes. "This is what concerns the Council," Velkith admitted. "Your species can reshape reality through sheer determination. Many see this as a threat." Thomas Reed stopped walking and turned to face her directly. His expression was serious but not hostile. "Let me tell you something about humanity, Ambassador. Yes, we can create champions. Yes, they can do seemingly impossible things. But do you know what the most common type of champion is?" Velkith shook her head. "Teachers, doctors, parents, people who believe in protecting and helping others, not warriors or conquerors. Our most powerful champions are almost always people who care deeply about making life better for those around them." "But you do have warrior champions. We have seen the footage." "We do, because sometimes protecting people means fighting those who would harm them. But even our warrior champions are driven by protection, not aggression. They fight because they believe in defending the innocent, not because they believe in conquest or destruction." Velkith considered this, and those who believe in darker things, in power or cruelty or domination. "They exist," Thomas admitted. "But here is something interesting we have discovered. Negative beliefs are almost never as strong as positive ones. A person who believes in hatred or cruelty usually has that belief rooted in fear or pain. There are cracks in their conviction because their foundation is unstable. But someone who believes in love or justice or healing, those beliefs can be truly absolute because they are built on something real and good." "That seems optimistic." "Perhaps, but history has proven it true for us. Every time a dark champion has risen among humanity, they have eventually been overcome by those who believed in better things. Not because good is inherently stronger, but because genuine positive beliefs tend to be more complete than negative ones." They continued walking toward the council chamber. Velkith felt something she had not expected to feel. She felt hope. The Zentari had been fearful of humanity. They had expected monsters who could reshape reality for selfish purposes. Instead, she was finding people who had somehow created a species-wide source of power that favored kindness over cruelty. "Tell me," she said as they approached the great doors of the council chamber, "what do you believe in, Representative Reed? What would make you a champion?" Thomas smiled, but there was sadness in it. "I believe in understanding, in bringing people together, in finding common ground between those who seem different. But my belief has never been strong enough to manifest powers. I have too many doubts, too much awareness of how complex such goals really are." "And yet you are here, leading the first diplomatic mission to the galactic community." "Yes, because even without powers, I can still work toward what I believe in. That is something many people forget. Champions are remarkable, but they are not the only way to change the world. Sometimes the slow, steady work of ordinary people matters just as much. The great doors opened, revealing the assembled Galactic Council. Hundreds of representatives from dozens of species turned to look at the small group of humans. Velkith saw fear in many faces. She saw hostility in others, but she also saw curiosity and hope. "Are you ready?" she asked Thomas. "Always," he replied. "Let us show them who we really are." The council session lasted for 3 days. The humans answered questions with patience and honesty that surprised many of the assembled representatives. They did not try to hide their abilities or downplay their potential. They simply explained who they were and what they believed. On the second day, High Arbiter Moreth asked the question that everyone had been thinking. "If your champions are so powerful, why have you not conquered the galaxy? Why do you remain on a few dozen worlds when you could rule them all?" It was the young healer, Dr. Chen, who answered. She stood before the massive crystalline being without fear, her voice clear and strong. "Because conquest is not what we believe in," she said. "You ask why we do not rule, as if ruling others is the natural goal of power. But power without purpose is meaningless. We believe in building, not taking, in creating, not destroying, in helping, not controlling." "Pretty words," said the Insectoid ambassador. "But history shows that powerful species eventually seek to dominate others. It is the nature of power." Another human stepped forward. He was older than the others, with a weathered face that showed he had lived through difficult times. His name was Marcus Williams, and Velkith's records identified him as a champion who believed in freedom. "I spent 40 years of my life fighting against oppression," Marcus said. "First in my own country, then in others, then among the stars. I have seen what happens when people believe they have the right to control others. I have stood against tyrants and dictators and would-be emperors, and I can tell you this with absolute certainty. The desire to dominate others is not a sign of strength. It is a sign of weakness." "Explain," Moreth demanded. "Those who seek to rule others do so because they are afraid of being seen as weak, afraid of losing what they have, afraid of others becoming more powerful than them. Their desire for control comes from fear, not confidence. True strength does not need to dominate. True strength can exist alongside others without feeling threatened." The council chamber was quiet as Marcus continued. "Humanity has learned this lesson the hard way. Our history is full of war and conquest and cruelty. We have done terrible things to each other and to our world, but we have also learned. We have grown. The ability to create champions emerged in us only after we began to truly understand that belief in positive things creates stronger conviction than belief in negative things." "You are saying your powers evolved as a response to moral development?" asked a council member whose species existed as a collective consciousness. "We are saying the two cannot be separated," Marcus replied. "The universe, it seems, rewards genuine conviction, and genuine conviction is easier to maintain when it is based on something good and true. A person who believes in healing does not have to constantly justify their belief. They can see the good they do every day. But a person who believes in conquest must always be fighting something, must always be proving their power, must always be afraid of losing it." On the third day, Representative Reed made a formal proposal to the council. "We seek membership in the Galactic Council," he said. "Not as rulers or conquerors, but as partners. We believe that our species has something unique to offer the galaxy, but we also believe we have much to learn from you. We propose an exchange of knowledge, of culture, of ideas. We propose cooperation instead of competition." "And if we refuse?" asked a voice from the back. "If we decide that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed in galactic society?" Thomas Reed's expression remained calm. "Then we will return to our worlds and continue as we have been. We will not attack you for refusing. We will not seek revenge. But we will also not stop being who we are. We will continue to create champions. We will continue to explore and grow and spread across the stars. And one day, you may come to regret not being our friends when you had the chance. Is that a threat? No, it is simply a truth. The galaxy is vast and full of dangers. Species rise and fall. Empires crumble, but ideas survive. Beliefs persist. And humanity is built on beliefs that have proven stronger than any weapon or army. We would rather face those dangers alongside you than alone, but we will face them either way. The vote was held at the end of the third day. After much debate and discussion, the Galactic Council voted to accept humanity as provisional members. The vote was not unanimous, but it was enough. Velkith watched as Thomas Reed shook hands with Morath and other council representatives. She saw the cautious hope in many faces, the lingering fear in others. But she also saw something new. She saw possibility. The humans had not threatened or demanded. They had simply shown who they were and asked to be accepted. It was such a strange approach for a species with their power. And perhaps that was exactly what made them trustworthy. As the humans prepared to leave, Thomas Reed approached Velkith one final time. "Thank you," he said, "for giving us a chance." "I must ask," she replied, "were you not afraid, coming here to face beings who might have tried to destroy you?" Thomas smiled. "Fear is natural, but it does not have to control us. I believe that understanding and cooperation are possible between all thinking beings. That belief brought me here. It will not let me give in to fear. Perhaps you are more of a champion than you think. Perhaps we all are. Champions are not separate from the rest of humanity. They are simply humans who have found something to believe in completely. Everyone has that potential." Velkith watched the human ship depart. She thought about what she had learned over the past 3 days. She thought about belief and conviction and the strange power that humanity had somehow unlocked. And she thought about what she believed in, her dedication to diplomacy, her desire to bring species together instead of letting them destroy each other, her conviction that understanding was possible even between the most different beings. She wondered if her beliefs were strong enough. She wondered if she could learn from these strange, impossible humans. She wondered what kind of champion she might become. 5 years passed. The relationship between humanity and the Galactic Council grew stronger with each passing month. Human champions worked alongside alien scientists and diplomats. They healed diseases that had plagued species for millennia. They helped resolve conflicts that had seemed impossible. They defended worlds against threats that no army could have stopped. But they were not perfect. There were failures and mistakes. Some aliens could not overcome their fear of human power. Some humans abused their abilities or lost themselves in arrogance. The partnership had difficulties like any relationship. Velkith had become the primary liaison between the Council and humanity. She worked closely with Thomas Reed and his team, and over the years, a genuine friendship had developed. It was during this time that she learned the full truth about how champions were created. "It is not just belief," Thomas explained during one of their private meetings. "Belief is the foundation, but there is another element, a moment of crisis, a point where the person must choose between abandoning their belief or committing to it completely." "A test," Velkith said. "In a way, but not one that can be manufactured. It must be genuine. A real situation where everything the person believes in is threatened. In that moment they either break or transcend. Those who transcend become champions. And those who break." Thomas's face showed pain. They lose something, not their abilities since they never had them, but something deeper, their faith in what they believed. Some recover eventually, others never do. Velkith thought about this. It seems cruel to require such suffering for such power. Perhaps, or perhaps it is simply honest. True conviction cannot exist without being tested. A belief that has never faced opposition is just an opinion, but a belief that has survived genuine challenge, that has been proven in fire, that is something real. Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert. Velkith checked her communicator and felt her blood go cold. "The Terminus fleet," she said. "They are attacking the Council headquarters." The Terminus were an ancient species that had refused all contact with the Galactic Council. They existed on the edge of known space, and their technology was far beyond anything the Council possessed. For centuries, they had been content to ignore the rest of the galaxy. No one knew why they had suddenly chosen to attack. "How many ships?" Thomas asked, already moving toward the door. "Hundreds, perhaps thousands. Our defenses will not hold." They ran through corridors filled with panicking beings from dozens of species. Emergency lights flashed and alarms screamed. Through viewports, they could see the Terminus ships approaching. They were vast, dark things that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. They reached the command center to find chaos. Council representatives were arguing and shouting. Military commanders were giving orders that conflicted with each other. No one seemed to know what to do. High Arbiter Moreth turned to Thomas with something close to desperation in his crystalline face. "Where are your champions? We need them now." "Dr. Chen and Marcus are already organizing evacuation of the civilian sectors," Thomas replied. "But against a fleet this size, even they cannot do much. There are too many ships, too spread out. We could protect small areas but not the entire station." "Then we are lost," someone cried. Velkith watched Thomas read. She saw him thinking, calculating, searching for an answer. She also saw something else. She saw doubt. "There must be something," she said, "something we have not considered." "The Terminus are not like other aggressors," Thomas replied. "They are not conquering or raiding. They are destroying everything. Complete annihilation. Our champions cannot negotiate with them. They cannot heal the damage they are doing. They cannot shield the entire station." "Then what do they believe that could stop this?" Thomas looked at her, and in his eyes she saw recognition of what she was really asking. A champion powerful enough to stop an entire fleet would need to believe in something truly universal, not just protecting certain people or healing certain wounds, something bigger, something that encompasses everything. Does such a champion exist? "I do not know. I have never heard of one." The station shook as the first Terminus weapons struck the outer shields. They had only minutes now. Velkith made a decision. She had spent years working toward understanding between species. She had dedicated her life to bringing different beings together. She believed in it with everything she was. But was that enough? "I want to try," she said. Thomas stared at her. "What?" "I am not human, but you said yourselves that you do not fully understand how champions are created. Perhaps it is not limited to your species. Perhaps conviction itself is what matters, not biology." "Velkith, we have never seen a non-human champion. It may not be possible." "Then I will fail, but I will try, because I believe in this. I believe in the possibility of understanding between all beings. I believe that connection is stronger than destruction. I believe that this council, this gathering of different species working together, is worth saving." The station shook again. Warning lights indicated that shields were failing. Thomas Reed looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Tell me what you believe. Say it out loud, make it real." Velkith closed her eyes. She thought about everything she had worked for, every negotiation she had conducted, every conflict she had resolved, every moment of understanding she had witnessed between beings who had started as enemies. "I believe that all thinking beings are connected," she said. Her voice was steady despite her fear. "I believe that understanding is always possible if we try hard enough. I believe that differences make us stronger, not weaker. I believe that the universe is better when we work together than when we fight alone." The station lurched. She could hear explosions in the distance. "I believe that this moment matters, that what happens here will echo across the galaxy. I believe that we cannot let hatred and destruction win. I believe that connection and cooperation must survive. She felt something changing inside her, something opening, something vast. I believe that I was meant to be here, meant to do this, meant to prove that champions are not just a human thing. That conviction belongs to anyone willing to commit to it completely. The change accelerated. She felt power flowing through her, power she had never imagined possible. It was not human power. It was something different, something that belonged to her species, her history, her unique perspective on the universe. But it was also the same, because conviction was conviction, regardless of who held it. She opened her eyes and saw Thomas Reed staring at her with wonder. "It is working," he breathed. Velkith raised her 4 arms. Through the viewports she could see the Terminus fleet, hundreds of vast ships bearing down on the station. She could feel all of them, sense their destructive intent. But she could also feel something else. She could feel the millions of beings on the station behind her. Council members and workers and visitors from dozens of species, all of them afraid, all of them hopping, all of them connected. She reached out with her new power, not to attack the Terminus ships, not to shield the station, but to communicate. Her mind touched the alien consciousness that controlled the Terminus fleet. It was vast and cold and ancient. It had seen civilizations rise and fall for millions of years. It had decided that the galaxy was better off empty. But Velkith showed it something it had never considered. She showed it the connection she felt with every being on the station. She showed it the negotiations and compromises and moments of understanding. She showed it enemies becoming allies and strangers becoming friends. She showed it what they were building together, what they could become if given the chance. The Terminus fleet stopped. For a long moment, nothing happened. The vast dark ships hung motionless in space. Then slowly, they began to turn away. Velkith felt the ancient consciousness withdrawing. It was not convinced. It still believed that all things ended in destruction eventually, but it was curious. It had seen something unexpected. It was willing to wait and watch. As the fleet disappeared into the darkness between stars, Velkith felt her new power settle into her. It was not overwhelming anymore. It was simply part of who she was. She turned to face the command center. Dozens of beings from dozens of species stared at her in shock and amazement. "I believe," she said, "that we have much work to do." The news of the first non-human champion spread across the galaxy within days. It changed everything. Species that had feared humanity's unique power now saw new possibilities. If conviction could unlock this ability in anyone, then all species had the potential to create their own champions. The power was not human, it was universal. More importantly, they learned that different species created different kinds of champions. Human champions were powerful in direct, forceful ways. Their beliefs manifested as obvious abilities like healing or protection or strength. But Velkith's power was different. She had become a champion of connection and understanding. Her ability was not to force or protect but to communicate. She could reach any mind, no matter how alien. She could find common ground where none seemed to exist. She could help beings understand each other in ways that had never been possible before. Other species began producing their own champions with their own unique abilities. The crystalline arbiters created champions who could see and manipulate time itself, their deep belief in justice manifesting as the power to restore what was taken. The collective consciousness species created champions who could merge minds temporarily, allowing perfect understanding between individuals. Humanity watched these developments with genuine joy. They had never wanted to be special or superior. They had simply discovered something remarkable about the universe and were happy to share it. Thomas Reed worked alongside Velkith in the months that followed, helping to establish programs that could identify potential champions in other species. The work was delicate. They could not force conviction. They could only recognize those who already possessed it and help them understand what was possible. I was wrong, Thomas admitted during one of their sessions. I thought I would never be a champion because I had too many doubts. You still have doubts, Velkith observed. Yes, but I understand them better now. My doubts are not about what I believe. They are about how to achieve it. I believe completely in understanding and cooperation. I simply doubt whether I am the right person to make it happen. And now, Thomas smiled. Now I know that I do not have to do it alone. That was my mistake. I thought being a champion meant being exceptional. But what I have seen is that champions are not separate from everyone else. They are connected to everyone else. They draw their power from shared beliefs and common goals. You are saying that you were a champion all along. I am saying that maybe the distinction is not as important as I thought. Champions can do remarkable things, but so can ordinary people working together. Both matter. Both are needed. A year after Velkith's transformation, the Galactic Council formally renamed itself. It was no longer just a council of representatives. It was now called the Alliance of Conviction, a gathering of species dedicated to finding and nurturing those who believed strongly enough to change reality. The alliance grew quickly. Species that had been enemies for millennia joined together. Problems that had seemed unsolvable were addressed by champions who believed in solutions. The galaxy was still dangerous. There were still threats and conflicts and difficult times, but there was also hope in a way that had never existed before. The Terminus remained at the edge of known space, watching. They did not attack again, but they did not leave either. Some believed they were waiting to see what the Alliance would become. Others thought they were simply patient, knowing that all things ended eventually. Velkith believed they were learning. She had touched their ancient minds. She knew they were not evil, just old and tired and convinced that nothing lasted. But she also knew they were curious. They had seen something unexpected, and they wanted to understand it. Perhaps one day, they would believe in something too. Years passed. The Alliance spread across the galaxy, bringing connection and cooperation to species that had never experienced either. Champions rose and fell, each leaving the universe a little better than they found it. The humans who had started everything continued to produce the most champions, but they were no longer the only ones. Every species contributed its own kind of powerful believers. The galaxy was becoming something new, something that had never existed before. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth that humanity had discovered and shared. Belief matters. Conviction matters. What you truly believe, what you commit to completely, can reshape reality itself. Not because belief was magical or supernatural, but because thinking beings were part of the universe, and the universe was more responsive to thought than anyone had imagined. When a mind believed strongly enough in something, it created a connection between intention and reality. Champions were simply those whose connection was strong enough to be obvious. Everyone had the potential. Everyone could believe. The question was simply what you chose to believe in and whether you were willing to commit to it completely. Thomas Reed finally became a champion in his old age. It happened quietly, without drama or crisis. He simply realized one day that his doubts had faded. He believed in the Alliance and its mission completely. He believed in the possibility of galactic peace and cooperation. His power was subtle. He could help others believe. When he spoke, his words carried conviction that inspired conviction in those who listened. He could not force anyone to become a champion, but he could help those with potential realize it. It was a fitting power for someone who had spent his life building bridges between species. Velkith visited him on his final day, when human age had finally caught up with him. He lay in a bed, surrounded by friends and family from a dozen different species. "Are you afraid?" she asked. "No," he replied. "I believe that what we built will continue. I believe that the Alliance will grow and thrive. I believe that the galaxy is better than it was when I was born. What is there to fear? What comes next? Thomas smiled. I do not know, but I believe it will be good. That is enough. He died peacefully, still believing. And in that moment, Velkith felt something remarkable. His conviction did not disappear. It spread outward, touching everyone who had known him, reinforcing their own beliefs. Champions did not die, she realized. Not really. Their beliefs lived on in those they inspired. Their conviction became part of the galaxy itself, a permanent addition to the web of connection that bound all thinking beings together. Humanity had created champions from anyone who believed strongly enough in something. But in doing so, they had done something even more remarkable. They had created a way for belief itself to persist, to grow, to spread. The universe was full of wonders, ancient species and cosmic forces and mysteries beyond understanding. But perhaps the greatest wonder of all was simply this, that thinking beings could believe in something, and that believing could make it real. The stars continued to shine. The alliance continued to grow. And somewhere in the vast darkness, those who believed kept believing, kept hopping, kept working to make the galaxy a little better every day. That was humanity's gift to the universe, not power or technology or conquest, simply the understanding that conviction mattered, that belief was real, that anyone who cared strongly enough about something good could become a champion. And the universe, it seemed, agreed.